Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Beginner Basics, the Basics. Today I'm going to be taking a quick opportunity to teach you some of the basic fundamentals of Dungeons & Dragons Online. So things that either might not be clear in the game, or maybe you just don't know right away, you'll be able to understand more quickly. So to get started, first we're going to talk about levels and leveling up. At the bottom of the screen, there is a bar here. As you earn experience points, this bar will fill up. And at the bottom right, you see these little bubbles here. Each bubble represents a rank through your level. Every time you gain one rank, you get an enhancement point, and enhancement points can be spent to make your character more powerful. To access your enhancement points, on the bottom left corner of your screen, you have the main menu, and then you can click enhancements, this little button up here. If you don't like having to click this all the time, you can actually drag it, like grab it and drag it, and you can put it on your bar to click it in the future, or you can use the keybind Control R. Your enhancement tree is basically how you specialize your character, and you can spend your enhancements you can spend all your points whenever you want, as long as you earn them as you go through your levels. Every level earns you 4 points, and once you've earned your 4 points, instead of gaining an enhancement for your 5th bubble, that 5th bubble is your next level. And to level up, you go find the appropriate trainer, of which I'm overlooking some of them in the harbor here. You can go up to your next trainer and talk to them, and they will take you to the next level. When it comes to experience points, you want to make sure you are taking your levels regularly, as you can't hold once you go above the cap of XP for that level, you can only hold up to 2 levels worth of experience. So if you are level 3 and you have enough experience to level up to 4, you can keep gaining experience, but once you get to level 5, you can't gain that experience anymore. You have to level up before it'll let you get any more experience. Now, when it comes to choosing an adventure and choosing a difficulty, you can tell that somebody might have a quest for you because they will have a chalice above their head that will indicate there is some type of adventure or thing you can do. So by talking to the player, you can then read and learn the information, but then you get a quest. Now, if you have the quest selected, like you just got it, you will see it's now blinking on the map up here. The icon is blinking. Similarly, if you want to do a quest, so let's say I don't want to do the Sinister Storage, I would actually like to do Stealthy Repossession. By selecting it here, now there's a little icon that shows where I'm going. It's like an arrow pointing this way. And if I open up my map with the M key, I can see that it is in fact this guy right here that is blinking. Lesto Half Price is this guy over here. So that's a way to select your adventures. Now, when you get to an adventure, there are multiple difficulties on it. So there is casual, normal, hard, elite, and then Reaper mode. If you're just starting out, you'll only be able to play casual and normal. By completing a quest on normal, you will unlock hard, and by completing a quest on hard, you will unlock elite and Reaper mode. Quests on normal are a great way to learn the adventure. You learn the monsters, the placements, what types of spells you can be expecting, and get a chance to really experience the adventure. Once you move up to hard difficulty, the monsters become a lot more dangerous, and so do some of the associated things in the quest, like traps hurt more, and secret doors are now more difficult to find, requiring a higher search score to be able to find them. And then finally, elite difficulty is kind of the challenge that the developers kind of expect you to be able to play at as like a high level player. So if you can beat a quest on normal, you can beat a quest on hard, give elite a try. Elite quests give better loot, more experience, and they have a higher chance of dropping special loot that dungeons will drop sometimes. Then you have Reaper mode. Reaper mode is for the enfranchised players. It's for the players who've been playing this game for a very, very long time. It adds extra difficulties and restrictions, like limiting how much you can heal yourself, so you have to rely on teammates to be able to heal each other, adding way more damage onto monsters, extra modifiers onto monsters, and adding dangerous Reapers that will spawn, that are resistant to a lot of things, and have incredible secondary effects, or sometimes they just kill you. So you got to be careful about that. So for getting started, you're going to want to start on normal and then work your way up. And so as you learn a dungeon, if you've done it on normal, you've done it on hard, now you know, okay, I know where this trap is. So when I go on elite, I can dodge it, or I know how to get around it so you don't get instantly obliterated, because traps are extremely dangerous on elite difficulty. Now, if you have reincarnated, which is where you reset your character, you can open the dungeons on hard initially or elite initially, so you don't have to do the quests on normal right away. Reincarnating is where you set your character back to level 1, but you gain a bonus, and a lot of people will do that. Some people don't like to do the end game of an MMORPG. They like the leveling process, and this is a way that lets you level a lot, and by reincarnating you will be able to access elite right away. Alternatively, instead, you can do or you can become a part of the VIP program. The VIP program allows you to open elite right away, but be aware, even if you do pay for the VIP so you can open elite, you might not be ready for elite. You might get obliterated by a trap here and there. So don't be afraid, even if you can open elite, to maybe try hard or normal or whatever you think is good for you. And casual is just if you want to see the dungeon. Nothing will ever put up a fight in casual mode, so I would recommend you generally play normal. My next piece of advice is don't be afraid to explore around, because sometimes you might enter a quest and see I can go to the left here, there's a door. I can go down here and there's a hallway. And if I go this way, I've played this game before, I already know there's a whole bunch of stuff I got to do. I got to get a key to get through a door. I got to deal with all these guys. But sometimes there's secondary paths or shortcuts where if you're just paying a little bit of attention, I can climb over this box of crates here, and then boom, I skipped that whole section. So always be on the lookout for just not so much ways to skip, but shortcuts, secrets. Sometimes you might see something and then maybe it ends up you find special treasure. There are secrets everywhere in DDO, so make sure you're looking for them. Now, in an adventure, your resources only go down. So when you're in an adventure, you have this little text box telling you you're inside of an adventure. Your health and your spell points don't come back. So if I decide to cast a spell right here, I click Ram's Might, it spends my spell points, I have lost some, and if I keep casting, they do not regenerate. Your points don't come back, your health does not come back. Now you can get some of these things back, of course. If you're a healer or a cleric, you can cast a spell to get your health back, but of course your spell points are going to continue to go down. Additionally, anything with a little number here that has like a charges limit, like if I press this, it goes from 7 to 6, I can only do that so many times in between each rest. Now, if something can regenerate, it will usually tell you in the text that it comes back, but if it doesn't say anything, that means it just goes down. The way that you fix this is by going to a rest shrine. By going to a rest shrine, I will gain
quiet moment for me to work on the story of your adventures.
I forgot I had that talking. Anyway, by resting at a rest shrine, it's going to give you your spell points back, some of your health, and all of your little rechargeable abilities. Now that's back to 7, and I got all my spell points back. Rest shrines will always give you all of your spell points, but they will not always give you all of your health. The amount of health that you gain back is based on your heal skill. So your heal skill here will determine how much health you get back when you use a rest shrine. That being said, that's not usually what people use rest shrines for getting their health back. It's either for getting your spell points back, so you can then heal yourself, getting other ability charges back so you can heal yourself, or just getting other different charges and abilities, like on a fighter, maybe getting second wind to heal yourself, or just drinking a potion to heal. Usually rest shrines are not directly used for healing, they're mostly used for getting your other utilities and resources so you can then heal. Next up, we're going to talk about something which is how you affect monsters with abilities. If you are any type of physical character, you attack with your weapons. So I'm throwing bottles right here and dealing damage to my enemies. Your attack information is going to be contained right here in the inventory menu. So these are my weapons. I can see them equipped here. This weapon is right here, and this is my shield. The bonus determines your chance to hit. You add this number to a D20 that will appear on screen, and that will determine whether you hit the monster. Your damage is with this formula that's right here, so I can see what my damage is. And then based on the D20 that I will see on screen when I attack a monster, will determine whether I critically hit or not, and how much damage I deal on a critical strike. This bonus, which is your hit bonus, sometimes also called hit chance, hit bonus to hit, is important, as without it you don't actually hit monsters. And then the damage is the actual damage that your weapon will deal. Now this isn't entirely accurate because this is just talking about the weapon itself and doesn't include other different multipliers your character might have. Those multipliers are called power, and you can find them in your character sheet. There is this next to spell points. I can see my spell points, and then I have power here. This is what says spell damage. This is your spell power. These numbers translate to direct percentages. So it says acid right at the top, 200. That means I have 200 acid spell power, which means my acid damage from my spells is increased by 200%. It's pretty easy to see on a different piece of gear. So I don't think I have any spell power items equipped on this character right now. But if I had a spell power item that gave me like 50 spell power, it would increase that by 50, bringing my acid from 200 to 250, giving me a little bit more damage. Similarly, for your weapon attacks, you have this little sword thing, and it's your melee and ranged power, which does the same thing. Each point of melee or ranged power increases your melee or ranged damage by 1%. So I have 200 ranged power. I'm throwing a thing, so that's 200% extra damage. So I just take whatever this number is, multiply it by 3, and that's how much damage I'm actually doing. The easiest way to do that calculation is just to attack, but that's kind of how the power works, and that's kind of how you're scaling damage. Let's talk about traps really quickly. If you're a character that can disable traps, how do you find them and how do you figure out what to do? Well, first, the spot skill determines your ability to know if a trap is nearby. It doesn't find the traps, but it gives you a sense that there is a trap that is nearby. So approaching a trap, an icon will appear on the top left corner of your screen that says, "Oop, trap nearby," if your spot is high enough. However, you don't need spot to find a trap, as long as you happen to know where it is. Sometimes you can visually see it, or more often than not, you've played the game before, so you have an idea of where the trap is, so that's where the search comes in. Search is what actually makes the trap visible to yourself and other players, and also allows you to find a trap box, which allows you to disable it. So, in this adventure, I know that there are traps up ahead. My character actually has an ability that I get later on called Watchful Eye that allows me to, if my stats are high enough, it'll just display it for me. I don't have to use the search key. But let's say I move forward and all of a sudden, boom, I got a little icon that says there's a trap here and I found it automatically.
The air is chilly and damp.
And if I move forward,
the books seem bone dry.
I can see that there's a trap box back here that will control these traps. And so if I go and I loot this bookshelf, which will activate the traps as he gets upset at me for taking his books, I can see these dangerous traps. How am I going to be able to escape this dungeon? Well, first of all, if I have to move through a trap, that's where Tumbling can come in. Tumbling is an ability. You have these little charges down here, these little green bubbles. By using a tumble, you're able to expend a charge to give yourself a defensive bonus. What I recommend all of you do is go into your gameplay under your options and turn on the experimental tumble controls. To tumble, you hold down the block key, which is shift by default, or you can change it, but you block and you press a direction and your character will move in that direction. With the experimental control, it's treated more like an action game. So I can press it while moving and my character will just automatically tumble in that direction. While tumbling, you get to add your tumble bonus, this number right here, 86, to my saving throw, which is what protects me from these traps. So if I go into it, I get an 8 plus 87 on my chance to resist it. But if I tumble, I get a plus 173 on my chance to resist it. So tumbling through traps is very helpful to keep you alive and safe. And this applies even to non-trap using characters. But then, once I've found the trap box, as long as I have Thieves Tools, which you'll need to make sure you procure, so get some Thieves Tools. All trapping characters will start with some, and they're pretty common in treasure chests. You can get them up to +5 to get a bonus. You then click on the control panel, and your character is going to attempt to disable the trap. So I am 5 plus 78, so I disabled the trap successfully. Now, these traps are no longer working. This trap right here is still going. Not every trap in the game has a way to disable it, but this trap is pretty easy to avoid. You just line it up and walk right through. If you fail to disable a trap, that's okay, you can try again, unless you fail by more than 5. Let's say you needed to roll a 25 to disable the trap, and you rolled a 19, you failed by more than 5, which means the trap box explodes. No one else can interact with it, and it deals a huge amount of damage, basically as much as the trap. So sometimes you can attempt to disable a trap and actually blow up your character at the same time. So not ideal. So make sure you keep your trapping skills in check, and maybe if you're playing like a rogue and you don't have that many points into your trapping skills, you're not as good as somebody else, but there's an artificer in your group and they seem pretty good at it, maybe allow them to disable the traps so that you don't have that many exploding in your face. Or if you have one explode, maybe give somebody else a try. Now, Dungeons & Dragons Online features a lot of different enemies, but unlike a lot of modern games, this game features not just resistances, but also immunities. The type of monster you're facing determines what you can and cannot affect it with. For example, if you have a fire creature, most fire creatures are immune to fire. This is not World of Warcraft or Lord of the Rings Online, where all damage works against all enemies. If a monster is made of fire, it's immune to fire, full stop. You cannot do anything to it with your fire damage. There are exceptions, of course. Some classes get abilities to penetrate or bypass different types of immunities, but I wouldn't say that's common. So learning the monsters is an important part of Dungeons & Dragons Online. Now, you might not know what a monster is resistant or immune to, but some of it you can infer based on what they do, or you see the immune message after you cast a spell, and then you go, ah, that doesn't work. As an example, if I move down this hallway, there are 2 skeletons here. Now, the skeletons, because they are undead, are automatically immune to a lot of different things. Anything necromancy basically doesn't work on them. If I use like unholy magic, they just kind of entirely ignore it. Additionally, because they're made out of bones, slashing and piercing weapons do less damage, but bludgeoning weapons do full damage against them because you can just smash the bones with a mace, but a sword isn't going to do nearly as much. Additionally, because skeletons are undead, I can't just blind them. I can't cast a disease against them. There's nothing to infect with the disease. So bear in mind that different monsters will have different immunities depending on the monster itself. So that's something you have to be aware of in Dungeons & Dragons Online. If you're ever unsure, you can always check the wiki, or if you're also unsure, you can also check pen and paper. You can go through some of the old 3.5 SRD files, and that will actually give you some good information about what monsters are resistant and immune to. Resistances and immunities are all over the video game, and that can actually help determine whether you want to play a certain character or not. For example, these skeletons are also immune to cold damage. If I use a cold spell, they take nothing, and that might determine whether you want to play a character that focuses on cold magic or not, knowing, skeletons, a common type of undead, are immune to cold. Maybe I don't want to play cold as much. Or maybe there's a quest as you're playing that you find out it's the Crypt of Infinite Skeletons, and you're playing your cold wizard, and you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll skip the Crypt of Infinite Skeletons and go over to like Lava Mountain and fight those guys with cold spells instead. Now, since I'm already being beaten up, let's talk about defense. How do you stop yourself from dying against monsters? Well, there's multiple different defensive layers in this video game. Let's go over them right now. Number 1 is armor class. It's the least straightforward and the most straightforward at the same time. Armor class is basically, when I talked about hit chance before, you add this number to your attack roll, and that's how you hit. That's what the monsters are doing to you. They're trying to beat your armor class. So to hit you, they have to roll an attack, and then they have to hope that they hit you. So these monsters are mostly missing me because my armor class is too high. Armor class is also difficult to determine exactly how it works because they've changed the formula. But basically, if you have more armor class, then monsters will hit you less often. Additionally, when you mouse over armor class, there's also a dodge chance. Dodge is a stat that some classes get access to, but it mostly comes from magical items and equipment. And your dodge ability, or how much dodge you have, is based on your armor. This is my chest piece right here, and it says my maximum dex bonus is 32. That is also my maximum dodge bonus. So while I'm wearing this, my dodge cannot go above 32, which is a separate type of bonus. This is important because if you're wearing heavier armor, for example, if I have a heavy plate, that might have a maximum dex bonus of 2, which means my dodge is limited to 2. So your character can't dodge as much, although my character wearing light armor can get a much higher dodge of 28%, and that stacks with my armor class. So you'll see that when I'm getting attacked by the monsters, sometimes I'm dodging with that 28%, or sometimes they're missing because they just can't beat my armor class. Then we move into the next type of avoidance defense called concealment. Concealment is basically like magic that prevents enemies from hitting you, either if they're blind, maybe you're in a fog cloud, or maybe, like my character, I believe I have some magic that gives me concealment, although I actually don't know where that magic would be. Yeah, one of these items gives me concealment, but basically, you might have like a magical spell, like a displacement spell that makes you look like you're in 2 places at once. So the enemies have to make a 50-50 every time they attack you. That means enemies are going to miss you a lot, which is very, very useful. Or incorporeality. Incorporeality is basically what ghosts do. Ghosts aren't always in the material plane. Sometimes they're kind of like spooky and phasing through stuff. And so when they're doing that, you miss them. So you can actually get that for yourself. The Dark Apostate, as an example, is a character that gets a large amount of incorporeality because you literally turn into a shadow. Now, this is all about avoiding damage, but sometimes you're going to take damage and you want to reduce it. So the way you do that is these two stats right here. At the bottom of your resistances, you have the different elements that you can resist, but then you also have physical resistance and magical resistance. These numbers just make it so you take less damage if you get hit. Physical resistance is bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, and magical resistance is the rest of the damage types. You get physical and magical resistance by wearing armor, by wearing stuff like shields to protect yourself, by getting magical items that increase your physical or magical resistance. So for example, you might have an armor that says something like magical sheltering or physical sheltering on it that gives you even more resistance bonuses on it. Or you might have effects out of your character class, out of your feats, or out of your enhancement tree, like this Deepwood Stalker thing that says you get 3 extra physical resistance. So those things all combined help you with your defense. On top of that, tumbling is nice because when you tumble, my dodge right here is 28%, but if I tumble for that 1 second that I'm tumbling, I get 95% dodge. Kind of like having invincibility frames from your standard adventure games. So those are the different ways you can stay alive and protect yourself. So if you find you're dying a lot, maybe try to get higher armor class by putting on better armor or getting magic that raises your armor, get some dodge chance, look at your resistance ratings and try to get more of those. And then also look for maybe as a way you can get concealment. If you're a wizard, you could cast the blur spell or the displacement spell. If you happen to be a dark apostate, you can get incorporeality. So think about ways in which you can improve that for your character. Now we talked about accuracy, hitting monsters. The next thing is about hitting monsters with effects and spells. In your character sheet, you have saving throws, fortitude saves, reflex saves, and will saves. If a monster affects you with a spell, so let's say a monster affects me with a fireball spell, I get a save against that fireball, and it's a reflex save. Can I just dodge out of the way and take less damage? That's where saving throws come in. Every single ability that you have that has an effect on it, like this ability Devastating Shot, it says in the text, save 75 fortitude. So that means the monster has to roll a 75 on their dice. So if a monster, it has my fortitude save of plus 56, that means they would need to roll a 19 or a 20 to save against the effect. This is commonly referred to as DCs or difficulty check by the community. So if you see somebody talk about their DCs, how do you raise DC, DC this, DC that, that is what they are talking about. DCs, or their actual save here, is very important to keep that up when you're dealing with monsters. As a spellcaster, you'll get things that increase your DC specifically. Same thing with other types of characters. As an example, I have this Shadow Strike ability that says save 77, and then it will tell me the formula. It says DC, or sorry, your on hit, opponent must make a fortitude save versus DC 20 plus highest ability score modifier plus assassinate bonuses. So my DC is 20 plus my highest ability score modifier. These are your ability scores and their modifiers. So it's going to take my dexterity of 36. So that's 56. And then plus my assassinate bonuses. And you can find all your different bonuses in this little plus tab. So I'm going to go to general combat. I'm going to find assassinate of 21, so 56 plus 21 is 77, and that is my 77 fortitude save right here. So increasing these numbers means that monsters have a more difficult time resisting. Now these monsters are level 3, so they have basically nothing. So if I decide to hit them with my Shadow Strike, well, they're going to instantly die, but also they're not going to be able to save against the effect because they're too low level. Similarly, if you get to higher level ranges, for example, the most recent content that came out, the Chill of Ravenloft on the hardest difficulty, you might have a saving throw of 140 and a monster will still make their save. So as you go up, this is something you want to focus on. But if you notice when you attack monsters with abilities, spells, or effects and you see the word save coming up, that's because you need to raise this number, and so you got to look at the formula and say, 20 plus highest ability score. All right, well, Dex is my highest. Maybe I got to get more Dex. But it also says plus assassinate. Maybe you got to find more items that increase your assassinate chance. So always look for those things to make your character more powerful. Now, I just talked about having your stats increase so you can get more effects like increasing my saving throw on my Shadow Strike. I want to raise my dexterity. Well, something you have to know about Dungeons and Dragons Online is that statistics don't stack all the time. So I have these gloves. They give me 13 dexterity when I put them on. And I have these boots that give me 3 dexterity when I put them on. You would think I would get an extra 13 from the gloves and an extra 3 from the boots. However, let's see what happens when I put the boots on. My dexterity did not change. And when I put my gloves that give me 13, my dexterity also did not change. And the reason is because stats don't stack in Dungeons and Dragons Online, except when they do. So what do I mean by this? When you read a statistic, so this statistic right here, it's dexterity 13, it says passive plus 13 enhancement bonus to dexterity. 2 things that have the same bonus type don't stack. Because this is an enhancement bonus, and this is also an enhancement bonus, it will only take the highest value. So it won't take anything else that is higher than that. And I already have an item on that gives me a 15 enhancement bonus, my ring here. So therefore those items didn't apply. Now, where this is relevant is the fact that there are things that are not enhancement bonuses. As an example, I have no idea which item has my other bonuses on it. Here we go. I have the Band of Insightful Commands that gives me Profane Well-Rounded. This says you have a +2 Profane bonus to all ability. Profane is different than enhancement, so therefore this 2 will stack with my 15 and give me a total of 17. It's one of the weird quirks of DDO. I do wish there was like some color coding, so maybe it would be easier to see, but that's how the game works. So 2 bonuses that have the same type won't stack, but 2 bonuses of different types will. So for example, for my dexterity, I might have an enhancement bonus, an insight bonus, a quality bonus, a profane bonus, a sacred bonus, an artifact bonus. There's a lot of different types of bonuses, and that's part of what makes the game gearing kind of fun. Is it's all about putting together pieces of gear with as many interlocking pieces as possible where everything is different. So every item gives me separate bonuses that will stack together and none of them overlap or overwrite one another, which can be a fun part. The one exception to this is bonuses without a type. So for example, my enhancement tree just says I have this effect that gives +1 dexterity. This isn't a bonus, it's just +1 dexterity. Because there's no bonus type, that means it stacks with everything. So if you ever see the word like bonus, like a bonus type here, for example, when you kill a target, you get a 5% morale bonus to double strike and extra shot chance. That means that this is a morale bonus. If something else has a morale bonus, it won't stack with that. So because this has text there, it will only work with things that are not morale bonuses. But here, this survivalist just says you get hit points, no bonus type, and while wearing light armor, you get physical resistance rating, no bonus type. So that's the easy way to tell if something will or won't stack. It takes practice to learn all of these things. Another great example is as a tabaxi, for standing still, I get a movement speed bonus when I get started. So if I stand still for too long, I like start sprinting. But you'll notice it's a action boost bonus to movement speed, which means it won't stack with an action boost bonus from something else. So that's how you determine bonuses and what does or doesn't stack. This is the most confusing thing for a lot of people. A lot of people will put on different gear and be like, oh, 13 strength, and then, or like 13 dex, 3 dex, now I've got a million dex. But that's actually not how that works. You need to have different bonus values. At the beginning, this won't matter that much. You will only have the same type, but that's how you get stats like 80 or 100 or 120 is you get stats from different bonuses that stack together to really kind of line up your character. If you're somebody who doesn't like dealing with all these stacked up bonuses, well, that's where the reincarnation comes in. You don't have to worry about it. Stacking bonuses is really important for the end game and not as important while leveling. So if you don't love this gear Tetris, but you like the way the game feels, then you can just make characters and just have them kind of level and have fun without having to worry about all the stacking stuff. But it's something you should be aware of before you get started. And speaking of equipment, there are generally agreed upon 2 or maybe 3 different types of equipment in Dungeons and Dragons Online. You have items that are randomly generated. These nimble 3 boots of lightning guard are randomly generated items. This item I just found in a treasure chest somewhere, and I just have it, and it gives me dexterity and it gives me the lightning guard stat. That's just what it does. Every time you loot any chest, you're going to get randomly generated loot, and when you finish an adventure, you will also get randomly generated loot. Different slots give different stats. So for example, dexterity doesn't spawn in every slot. I can't get a helmet of dexterity, but I can get boots and gloves of dexterity as an example. However, there's the next type of item. This is a named item. So these are the deep snow boots. Named items only come from one place. They only have one source. So in this case, this comes from an adventure from the Feywild expansion, and the stats are locked to this. This item, if I find it, will always have the same stats. Think of it kind of like a unique item from another game, like a Diablo or a Path of Exile. It's like a unique item. It's always going to have the same stats. So this gives me insightful constitution and quality constitution, which we just talked about. They stack, so that's 9 more points of constitution. It gives me freedom of movement, so I can't be affected by like magical spells that slow my speed, and a bonus to my fortitude saving throw. Additionally, this item is part of a set, so I can wear multiple other pieces of the Eminence of Winter set, and I get extra bonuses. In general, named items are better than randomly generated loot. When you're starting out, you're only using randomly generated loot, and even while leveling, randomly generated loot can be pretty good, but randomly generated loot is limited on what type of stats you can get out of it. For example, on my boots, I have insightful constitution and quality constitution. You can get insightful stats on randomly generated loot in the higher levels, but quality you cannot. So to get the best gear possible, you're pretty much always going to be using full sets of named items, which come from specific places. So while leveling, you just do quests, you go places, you do adventures, you use what you find, and you have a blast. But once you get to the end game, you go, you know what, I really want these deep snow boots. So you gather your friends, you go and you raid the dungeon, and hopefully you pull a couple of them so you can put one onto your character. The next item that you can make is a crafted item. This one's a bit of an exception. There's a crafting system in this game called Caneth crafting, which allows you to put stats on equipment. This is a named item, but it lets you craft it, and it's the only one I have, for example. But basically, it allowed me to choose stats I wanted to put on here, which can be quite valuable to fill in slots. So at the end game, you're probably not using one of these randomly generated items, but you might use a crafted item to pick and choose the slots, because even though it might not have maybe as high stats as something else, the specificity of just being able to choose, I want this stat right here, and I want this stat right here, and I want this stat right here, and I can force it into one item, can be very, very, very useful. So as you go through adventures, you will find named items. One of the reasons why the difficulty matters is on the higher difficulty, the higher chance you have to find named items from that dungeon. Now, the last thing I'll say about specifically gear and named items, if it has a name, Gem of Many Facets, or Deep Snow Boots, these items are bound to your account when you pick them up. You can't trade them with other players. If you're doing an adventure with your friends and it's in the treasure chest, you can still pass it within the treasure chest. But once it goes into your inventory, it becomes bound to you and your whole account. Now, I can trade this between the different characters on my account through my bank, but unfortunately, I am not able to trade this to my friends. So if they want it, well, we suit up and we head out to the dungeon and we help them get one. Randomly generated loot can be traded whenever you want. So if you want to see if you can buy something on the auction house, maybe you're like level 11 and you're like, I really need a better dex item, and you don't know where to get one, you can just head over to one of the auctioneers that you might find around town. So for example, there's one here in the harbor. There's the auctioneer right here, and you talk to him and you say, hey buddy, I need a dex item. So I open up my thing and I type in, I want a nimble thing. And now I have my pick of the litter of what items happen to exist on the auction house. All right, now the last topic we're going to touch on today is going to be shopping. How do you buy stuff, like things you need for adventures and good adventuring goods? Well, all over the game, there are lots of different shops. I'm in the harbor right now, which is the starting area, and in the northwest corner, we have several shops. Right here is Daggerward's Apothecary, and then the Hammer and Chain. The Hammer and Chain can let you buy any weapon you want. So let's say you want to play a Bastard Sword character, which is an exotic weapon, so it's kind of rare to find in chests. You can just buy one to get started and then find one later. Similarly, if you want to buy healing potions for your adventure, which are pretty good, you can check out the Apothecary. And maybe you can also buy potions that increase increase your resistances to elemental damage. So if you walk into a dungeon and a kobold shaman blasts you with a lightning bolt and makes your health go to 0, and you go, you know what, I need to resist lightning to fight this guy, well, you can head to an apothecary and buy a potion. There are a lot of different places you can go to buy potions and different equipment, so check out the different shops in the game. The harbor has some basic stuff, but when you head into the Stormreach market in the center, there are more shops where you can buy more things, so you can get some better potions and what have you. And then if you wish to buy even better potions, you can head over to House Jarasco, which has the best potion vendor in the game for the highest quality potions. Or if you need spell components, you can also buy them in House Jarasco, allowing you to buy all of the spell components for your character. And then if you just want to buy some slightly higher quality weapons and armor, you can buy both of those in House Kundaric or in House Denith. So that's where you're going to be buying most of your general equipment for adventuring, and you can get a lot of good stuff. Not just potions, but maybe you also want to buy like a wand, like this wand of Cure Wounds, which is, or a scroll, like a scroll of restoration. So instead of having to cast the spell, I can just bring this with me to remove negative effects from my allies if I have the ability to cast it either from one of these characters, like a cleric, a favored soul, a bard, or a druid, or maybe I just have the stat use magic device, which allows me to use some of these items. And that is the last thing. I just thought of this. I'm going to talk about in this video is use magic device. This is just a statistic that almost every single character build I'm going to recommend to you, I'm going to recommend you max out. And the reason for that is that use magic device allows you to use scrolls, which means you can cast spells you wouldn't normally be able to cast. Because if you're playing as a fighter or a rogue, sometimes even as a wizard, you can't cast everything. So in this case, I have the Scroll of Resurrection here. This allows me to raise the dead, but it requires a use magic device of 44. So by putting points in use magic device, pretty much any character at the level cap can use these. So if somebody dies, you can resurrect them, or if somebody gets a terrible status condition, you can try to cure it in combat. This might seem like it's overpowered, like, oh, anybody can raise the dead, anybody can heal. Geez, it sounds like this game can be too easy. But trust me, just because you can raise the dead doesn't mean that's always the best option in combat, and sometimes the reason somebody else died might be that monster is now turning to face you right away, and you don't have time to whip out the scroll and start reading because the axe is going to start going into your face right away. So it's good to have as utility and very important for every character, and that's why I'm going to recommend you have use magic device, which can also allow you to maybe get some healing wands and other things during the leveling process, but that would be why. It's very useful, and every character can make use of use magic device. So these have been your basic tips, everything you need to know here. There's probably other things. If you watch this and you're an existing player, please leave more tips in the comments below for people to leave through of things that people might find helpful, and hopefully this has been helpful to you in some capacity. But we will be back with the next video going into the classes and how to play each different one.